Bye bye.
Huh?
See if it's going like
Like
that.
this?
Yeah, just like that. Look at that.
Very good.
Yeah? Jehovah.
Scene, Nolan.
Serene.
What should it say called? Pool?
TV pool.
Scene, Nolan. No, I'm calling TV pool. Thanks, Mark. We have a departure from the hotel.
Oh, thank you. He'll be there before we get there anyway. There you sit. There comes that sun.
Look at that. Look at the pictures, Gabe.
Oh, look. Over the billboards.
Ah, why don't you warn me?
So I thought it was going to be subtle. I thought it was going to be a story about how they couldn't believe it and they were going to say, you don't understand what human rights really is. I thought it was going to be a slam on political explication of it.
The arrival of the President of the United States of America, William J. Clinton, at the Kalibata National Hero Cemetery. accompanied by the Commander of the Jakarta Division, Major General Army, A.M. Hidrotraining. The final salute in honor of those who have fallen. Salute. Thank you. The President of the United States of America proceeds to the visitors' room.
Established by a repressive government instead of the non-governmental organizations?
Well, first, let me just say a few words, Carol, and then I'll answer that question. I just want to say
Established by a repressive government instead of the non-governmental organizations?
Well, first, let me just say a few words, Carol, and then I'll answer that question. I just want to say that I'm very glad, along with Secretary Brown and our ambassador and Congressman Mineta, to be meeting with this distinguished commission, which is drawn from very many aspects of Indonesian life. Human rights is a fundamental part of American foreign policy. Whenever I'm abroad, whenever Secretary Brown is abroad, in our conversations we raise the issues of human rights. We'll be doing so today. We want to learn from this commission their views on the matter here, and most of all, we hope to find ways for the United States to help to advance the cause of human rights here in Indonesia. This is not first meeting of its kind by any means. From the very beginning of the Clinton administration, we have been raising the issue of human rights with Indonesia as well as with other countries where we have bilateral dialogue, and this is part of that tradition, being part of that important aspect of our foreign policy. So we'll be looking forward to those discussions today. We've decided to meet with this distinguished commission because we thought it was an appropriate government-to-government relationship. I've asked Assistant Secretary Winston Lord and relevant officials from the National Security Council and the National Economic Council to meet with the NGO group. We're getting full reports on that meeting. That seemed to be an appropriate allocation of relationships, but the main aim that we have is to pursue human rights in the most effective way that we can. That's the lodestar of our policy, and that's what we're continuing to do now. With your agreement, I'd like to ask Secretary Brown if he would add anything he'd like to with my remarks.
Well, I think Secretary Krister has really hit it on the head, and that is our concern about human rights, social justice issues around the world is unequivocal. We happen to believe that we have demonstrated that during these last 23 months. We will continue to demonstrate it in the future. We're very anxious to hear from the Commission, to get their perspective on the human rights situation in Indonesia. President Clinton raised the issues with President Suharto today. As a matter of fact, the meeting that we just left, President Suharto spent most of that meeting talking about that issue. There is always more progress to be made, and we will continue to pursue the objectives that we have set, the objectives that the American people deem important, and that is to assure protection of human rights all around the world.
Secretary Brown, do you think the Indonesian treatment of labor rights comes up to international standards?
Well, that is not a judgment for me alone to make. One thing I do know is that our strategy of commercial engagement, we believe, is the most effective strategy to have a positive impact on issues like human rights and labor rights. We think there is nothing incompatible between than we would have if we were commercially disengaged, if we just withdrew. We think having American business and industry on the ground in countries like Indonesia, exhibiting and practicing the best of business practices, in fact sets an important tone and has a long-term impact on the social and economic development of the countries with which we have a commercial relationship.
Secretary Christopher, is there any penalty that...
Jim, if I could, let me just put that in a somewhat broader frame. The first meeting took place this morning between President Suharto and President Clinton was in a very restricted group, and in that meeting a good deal of attention was put on the subject of human rights. President Clinton raised the subject in firm and forceful terms. Then, as Secretary Brown said in the larger meeting, the human rights issues once again were discussed by both sides, and now we're meeting here today. I go through that to emphasize to you and to make it clear to those who will be watching this that the United States has devoted a good deal of attention to the human rights issue here today, and as I say, I've directed Assistant Secretary Lord and asked the National Security Council and National Economic Council to meet with the NGOs. On your particular question, Jim, President Clinton said that he thought that the United States and Indonesia had opportunity to provide world leadership because of the resources that the countries have, because of the large populations that they have, because of the success they've achieved, and because they are open to the world. But he also made it clear that the criticism in the human rights field could be a limiting factor in the exercise of that leadership. That is one of the limitations, I think, that would be suffered if there is not an improvement along these lines. I think the relationship between the United States and Indonesia can never reach its highest levels unless the people of the United States have confidence that there is an effort here to respect the human rights of all the citizens. As President Clinton said yesterday at his press conference, it has been the consistent position of the United States that the citizens of East Timor should have a greater capacity to govern themselves than they have at the present time. They should have a larger role, more say-so in what happens in their part of the world. And that's a position that we've not changed, and it's part of an active dialogue between the United States and Indonesia.
Mr. Secretary, what about the East Timor students? Are you convinced that nothing will happen to them once you and President leave, and that they will not be harmed?
The Indonesian authorities have told us that they would not take retribution against them. They would not retaliate against them. Those assurances have come from high levels of the Indonesian government, and we take them seriously, and we expect them to be followed.
Thanks very much.
Let's go.
Very restricted.
Let's go.
Bayar iki.
Chances that none of us seem to have gotten any sound. Is there any way I can get an audio tape from you guys?
How do you know we got it? We were that far back. You'd have to ask the full chairman. I have to ask Mark.
You can stay tomorrow if you think it enough.
You can do what? How do you want to do it? Do you want to send a stenographer up to record it, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, I'll come up and record it.
Okay, what they do is I'm going to take the tape up and then distribute it to all 4 networks.
Okay.
And what you can do is you can just
I'll
take
just
a
come
tape.
up and, yeah, thanks.
Can I do that?
Sure.
Presuming
Relationship with Indonesia.
Oh, you got it?
I'll tell them. I'll go up the tape and just warn them.
Well, we better get it out for the minute.
Okay guys, so she's gonna come this way.
She's coming up.
Berarah kemana 09? Untuk menuju ke negaranya. Berarti Komando 2, kurangi kecepatan karena ini Brunei ini masih persiapan nih.
Sir? Guys?
You're blocking the shot.
Sir?
Please, sir.
Here, you're blocking the view.
Aceh tahun 9. Nah ini Brunei masih di sarang. Brunei masih di sarang.
Yeah, I've got some. These guys keep walking in front.
Krista 17 berarah Nissan 1. Indra Krista 17 berarah Nissan 1.
There was a tool, we're going to tell you what they're looking at. So great. This is Bill Brigg, who's with the USAID program here in Indonesia, and he's going to explain what you're looking at.
This is it's an urban kampung, an urban informal settlement. These types of communities extend, in this context, around about 8 kilometers down the Ciliwung River here. There's approximately 300,000 to 400,000 people that live in this type of community within Jakarta. The significance of seeing this neighborhood first and where we're going next is I think you will see a drastic change vis-a-vis assistance that the United States government through the United States aid program has been providing in this country by the provision of basic infrastructure, water supply, sanitation, drainage, community health clinics, and it's really had a major impact, at least over the last 6 years that I've been personally working here, in transforming neighborhoods such as this to what you will see in approximately 15 minutes. A major transformation.
How many people would you say are involved totally who live in these areas?
300 to 400,000 people within Jakarta.
Live in this one settlement.
Live in this settlement that extends about 8 kilometers down the Ciliwung River.
And there are other settlements in the area?
There are 3 million people in Jakarta that live in kampungs, both improved and unimproved.
And where do they come from?
In migration from primarily the rural areas, that's right.
But one of the things that Bill was just telling me is that this particular settlement is one of the most densely populated in all of Asia. So when you are looking at this, you are seeing not only the challenges in Jakarta, but the challenges in much of Asia. And why we wanted to explain this now is so that you could see this, and then we're going to a settlement that has been working to improve its living conditions, and with great assistance from the United States government and the AID program. And it's especially important to see what kinds of improvements actually can occur with a partnership between the local community, the national government here, and our government. And I really have been looking forward to seeing this because it's one of the real success stories that we can demonstrate about development.
Mrs. Clinton, are you concerned then that there may be cutbacks in programs like these?
Well, I want you all to see this, and I think that'll speak for itself. So we're going on to the next site.
Mrs. Clinton, can you
Thank
give us an impression about Indonesia, Mrs. Clinton?
We'll go to the next site, okay? Next site.
CNN, TVRI. CNN and TVRI.
Damn, this is a picture.
Just CNN and TVRI.
It's a picture if you move these people. It's a picture.
Can you, come on, people move
Move those people, it's a picture. Come on. Jesus, get these people out of the way.
Camera!
Forget it.
Agak sini jadi sama. Ya, dia juga pakai
Way. Can we get you back to go on the other road and then back in?
Ketawain yang satu lagi. Nggak mau ah. Jangan nangis.
What's going on?
Are we up top there?
Thank you. This probably fits several of them. Here, I'll take it. Will you take the one person like that?
We're going to try and we're good at
Just hold it. It's on.
It's on.
It's on. Just hold it.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we see her.
Don't even see her. Don't even see her. Don't even see her. Don't even see her.
Are you going to be Lori?
Don't even. Don't even see her.
We keep going, right?
Yeah. When she gets right down here, I'm going to talk about
Is there not a way to,
Right now, you have no
them
pictures.
with us?
These guys want to move back.
I've got 2 security guys.
Do you want to move them? We're going to move these guys back. She gets a phone.
I've already.
They cannot get anything.
And I even want to introduce this.
Yeah, it's perfect. Once again, the picture is ruined. No. The picture is her greeting all these people, and I haven't seen a fucking thing yet. You have no photo op.
Right now they got it blocked. That wasn't part of the plan.
No, these pulled out by our president.
We're going to continue walking up to the one.
I haven't got a goddamn thing yet. Can you go that way, pal?
You're not supposed to be
Steve, can you pull those 2 people out of there?
You got it? Yeah, we're going straight ahead. We need to start. We need to go. We need to go. Right now, pal. About to make the turn.
right here, guys.
Hold. Joel, sneak in there.
Start to George. Roger.
We need to go. We need to move back.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Finney, I want you to guide
These guys
CNN.
could just get out of the way. We could.
I know.
But you're holding her up.
Can you talk to George,
You need to
please,
keep
about
moving.
this 2 inches final?
Finally getting something.
Housing,
Yes.
since they have some more
Now,
income.
where did they get the building materials? Is that made available through the
Oh yes, the
settlement association?
we have enough. It's no problem. But because sometimes they can also use some used materials too. This is okay. It's still according to the building code. For those people, we have lower audit standard.
Hello.
We have a Muslim school here at Peringatan. Yeah, they're anxious to see you.
Good.
And
I'm fine. I'm glad to see you.
Pick it up, buddy.
Hello.
There we are.
Keep down in front, down in front, down in front.
Down, down, down.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, get the TV guys. Move. Come with me, CNN. Come with me.
Okay. And we have the local head of the.
Yes, Lucky also.
Good.
What happened,
Is everybody here? No, we're missing the APEC reporters.
Behind you.
We get those up? Yeah, come around here this way. Come around here. Come around. Around.
I'm just not going to play by the rules. I played mine and it didn't work.
Here we go.
All right, good. What you're seeing here is an area that looked very much like what you just saw previously in terms of the living conditions, the housing, the lack of sanitation, and the other problems. And through a concerted effort that I will have Bill and the gentleman from the association explain to you, and with a lot of assistance from our government working with the local and the national governments here, we've been able to make tremendous strides in sanitation, in drinking water, in housing, and in a lot of the other changes that we've just seen as we've walked through here.
AID for the last 35 years has been implementing worldwide a program called the Housing Guarantee Program. It is extremely successful from my perspective, being a career foreign service officer, working in urban communities like these all over the world. This is a program I think that hopefully the American public looks at closely, because we are having a major impact in developing countries. Indonesia is a perfect example where you can see what a dire urban slum looks like and what type of conditions you find now directly through USAID, U.S. government assistance. And we hopefully will be continuing to have this impact in this country, as well as many other countries that we're working in right now.
And one of the features of the program is the private sector involvement from the United States. Many of the funds that are provided for the environmental infrastructure changes and the housing improvement come not directly from our federal government, but come through the private sector in America, but are guaranteed by our federal government, and it's been a very good deal so far.
Improvements over the last 4 years in this country have totaled $125 million directly, as Mrs. Clinton said, from the United States private sector. Direct loans to the government of Indonesia, which the United States government guarantees. So there is not $1 of grant assistance going into these types of efforts. It's a direct public-private partnership from the U.S. private sector with the government of Indonesia and many other developing countries. And it works. And it works because, from our perspective, the private sector is actively involved in these types of investments also.
Add something.
As the head of the unit who implement this program, I thank the U.S. government for assisting this. The 60% of the Jakarta population living in this country, we have benefited the programs. It is really a remarkable change. It's not only physically, but socially and economic as well. The program has benefited so many people here, so we, again, thanks the American taxpayers. Thank you.
What is your name, sir?
My name is Ongki Sukasa. I'm the head of the housing department, as well as the head of the unit who implemented this program.
Could you spell it? I'm sorry.
Ongki Sukasa, my name is.
Could you spell it?
O-N-G-K-Y
K-O-Y?
K-Y S-U-K-U-S-A-H Sukasa. Ongki Sukasa. Yes. I'm the head of the housing department here, who also the Kampung Improvement Program is under my
Get
unit.
ready for Mrs. Clinton. Mrs. Clinton, is there concern on your part now with, again, changes in perhaps in the foreign policy of the United States, a more conservative approach, that programs like this would be cut out?
Well, I think it's important for the American public to understand the improvements that have been made around the world because of the assistance that has been provided both by our government and through the private sector, because this is a real success story. And it's not only good for the people who live here in Jakarta, it is good for the United States, because if you have our government helping people to get better educated, to be healthier, to have better living conditions, then you've got many fewer problems that will impact on our foreign affairs around the world. So I think it's the kind of win-win situation that America should be very pleased to see.
Do you think we could learn from these programs overseas? Could these be used to develop the inner cities of America?
Well, these are American programs.
Right, but could we bring them back home?
Well, under the President's leadership, we have begun to try to do some of that at home. For the first time, will have community development banks. That was passed by the last Congress. It will begin to be implemented. We hope that it will have some positive effect. We're beginning to try to do a better job in housing. Our Housing and Urban Development Department under the President has taken a different approach toward public housing. So many of the approaches that we've been doing overseas, which have been proven because of American assistance, American technical help, American dollars from the public and private sector, this President and this administration have begun to implement in some of our inner cities and our rural areas.
But today, even you have Jesse Helms talking about GATT, holding it off until next year. In effect, some would say holding GATT hostage to next year. Are you worried about that or other, let's say, programs like this being held hostage?
We're just going to have to wait and see what they really do, and we'll have plenty of time to judge what they do, and the American people will be able to judge that as well.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank
Shake
you.
hands very much.
Well, there was an Indonesian reporter that
Watch out, Jill.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hello.